In the climatic finale of Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo, 1968, Scotty Ferguson, James Stewart, a retired detective haunted by vertigo and an obsessive love for the illusory Madeline Elster, confronts Judy Barton, Kim Novak, at the San Juan Bautista Bell Tower. Judy, coerced into impersonating the dead Madeline by her lover Gavin Elster, ascends the spiral staircase in a black dress and necklace reminiscent of the original apparition, fulfilling Scotty's Pygmalion-like fantasy of resurrection. As they climb, Judy's pleas mix with visions of the spectral Carlotta Valdez, the suicidal ancestor whose ghost supposedly possesses Madeline. A shadowy figure, implied to be a nun, startles Judy, causing her to fall to her death. Scotty, peering over the edge, overcomes his acrophobia, achieving cathartic liberation amid her demise. This ascent-cum-descent encapsulates the film's themes of illusion, desire and mortality, ripe for multilayered interpretation.
From a Freudian lens, the scene dramatizes the death drive, thanatos, intertwined with erotic obsession, manifesting Scotty's repetition compulsion to reenact and master his primal trauma. His vertigo, stemming from a rooftop chase where a colleague fell to his death, symbolizes castration anxiety, a fear of symbolic emasculation tied to heights as phallic symbols of unattainable potency. The tower spiral ascent evokes the uncanny return of the repressed. Judy as Madeline revives Scotty's Oedipial fixation on an idealized, unattainable maternal figure, echoing Carlotta's suicidal legacy, blending Eros, the life-affirming possession with Thanatos, the destructive pursuit. One can interpret this as a sadistic male fantasy where violence enables rebirth. Scotty's conquest of the tower, staring into the abyss without vertigo, resolves his neurotic guilt through Judy's sacrificial fall, a displaced resolution of his impotence. The nun's appearance, a ghostly maternal superego, triggers Judy's hysterical breakdown, underscoring how women's bodies become vessels for male psychic projection, culminating in a fetishistic disavowal of loss. Ultimately, the scene exposes psychoanalysis's own vertigo. The analyst, Scotty as voyeuristic detective, risks grandiosity in rescuing the patient, only to enact a perverse cure through annihilation.
Anthropologically, the scene ritualizes colonial haunting and sacrificial expiation within a landscape of dispossession. The Mission San Juan Bautista, a Spanish colonial structure in California, stands as a palimpsest of layered histories, Franciscan conversion of Ohlone and Yokuts indigenous peoples, overlaid with Anglo-American myth-making. Judy's ascent mirrors ancient rites of passage or scapegoat rituals, where the impure, her as the false idol, is elevated and cast down to purify the community. Here's Scotty's fractured psyche. The ghostly Carlotta Valdez evokes duende-like ancestral spirits from Mexican-American folklore. But Hitchcock's portrayal misrecognizes this as Eurocentric Gothic possession, eliding native dispossession. First-generation anthropologists like Alfred Kroeber co-authored sanitized mission histories that erased indigenous hauntings, rendering the tower a spectral archive of erasure. Judy's fall thus enacts a mythic catabasis, a descent in the underworld, akin to Persephone or Inanna, but inverted. Her death fertilizes Scotty's rebirth, perpetuating a patriarchal cosmology where women's bodies mediate cultural trauma. This ritual closure affirms anthropological theories of liminality with the tower as a thresh where illusion dissolves into primal violence, underscoring how cinema mythologizes settler colonial vertigo over indigenous ground.
Sociologically, particularly through feminist theory, the finale scene could be a critique of mid-20th century gender performativity and the male gaze as instruments of social control. Maybe Scotty's surveillance is a scopophilic domination which reduces Judy to a fetishized object. This enforces patriarchal norms. Judy's ascension inside the tower in green dress symbolizes coerced masquerade, where women internalize and perform male fantasies to navigate economic precarity. The scene exposes misogynistic punishment. Judy's agency, her confession and plea for love, is pathologized as hysteria, culminating in her exorcism via death, a societal verdict on non-conforming femininity. Hitchcock could deconstruct this through irony. The nun's shadow evokes a feminist invocation, hinting at matriarchal resistance amid domestic entrapment. Broader societal tensions surface. Post-World War II America's obsession with conformity polices female sexuality, with Judy's fall reinforcing the virgin-whore dichotomy and class anxieties. Her impure origins doom her in heteronormative script where redemption belongs to the white male redeemer. Thus, the scene sociologically unmasks cinema's role in naturalizing gender hierarchies, where individual tragedy sustains collective illusions of control.
Philosophically and drawing on despair, Scotty's triumph over the void reflects a leap of faith into authenticity, but at the cost of ethical annihilation. His reconstruction of Judy echoes the eternal return, compulsively repeating the illusion until it shatters, revealing the will as self-destructive. Metaphysically, it interrogates bad faith. In sum, the scene vertigos us into epistemology's abyss. Can we know the nominal beloved or only our projections? This multi-faced climax cements the film Vertigo as a mirror to human frailty, where personal catharsis exacts cultural and ethical tolls, inviting endless reinterpretation.
Vertigo, Alfred Hitchcock's masterpiece, is steeped in themes such as obsession, illusion, guilt, and failing. Also falling, both literal and metaphorical. The two scenes of the climb up the tower at the mission of San Juan Bautista, located in California, form the narrative and symbolic pivot of the story. They oppose failure to success, illusion to revelation, and explore the tormented psyche of Scotty Ferguson, played by James Stewart, a private detective afflicted with vertigo. I will first analyze each scene, then their connection, before addressing a theological exegesis drawing on elements from the film and critical interpretations. The first glimpse, failure and illusion. This scene, occurring midway through the film, takes place during a trip that Scotty takes with Madeleine Elster, played by Kim Novak, the woman he is hired to surveil for his employer, Gavin Elster. Fascinated by her, Scotty brings her to the mission of San Juan Bautista, a historic site she mentioned in a trance, haunted by the spirit of Carlota Valdez, a tragic 19th century ancestor who was abandoned and committed suicide. The sequence begins with a lateral tracking shot of the mission, with its open and enclosed spaces foreshadowing the psychological trap. Madeleine, in a state of possession, enters a hypnotic trance. She fixates on Carlota's portrait in the mission's museum, then flees to the adjacent church. The climb itself is filmed from Scotty's subjective point of view, enhancing immersion in his vertigo. Hitchcock employs the famous dolly zoom, or vertigo effect, where the camera pulls back while zooming in, distorting perspective to simulate nausea and loss of control. Scotty follows Madeleine up the spiral staircase of the bell tower, but his acrophobia paralyzes him. His hand grips the walls, his face contorts in a silent scream. Halfway up, he collapses, helpless, while Madeleine reaches the top, gazes into the void, and jumps. Scotty tries to grab her through the window, but only catches her inert body, which he carries to the ground in a funereal embrace. This scene is a distillation of Hitchcockian suspense, where the danger is as psychological as it is physical. It illustrates the film's central theme, possession, not only Madeleine's by Carlotta, but also Scotty's emerging obsession. The failure of the climb symbolizes masculine impotence in the face of the femme fatale, a recurring motif in Hitchcock. Visually, the spiral staircase evokes a vortex, a fatal coiling around the past and repressed desire. Narratively, it is a point of no return. Madeleine's death traumatizes Scotty, plunging him into depression and a quest for reconstruction. But retrospectively, we discover that his suicide is a staged performance orchestrated by Elster to cover up the murder of his real wife. Illusion is at the heart of the scene, foreshadowing the film's doubles and masks. Let's consider now the second climb, Judy's fatal fall. The final scene, the film's climax, occurs later, 1 year after the first climb. Scotty is cured from his depression through therapy. He has crossed paths again with Judy Barton, a young woman who eerily resembles Madeleine. Obsessed, he gradually transforms her into a replica of his last lost love. But during a confrontation, he learns the truth. The jewel is a proof. The necklace is a proof. Judy was Madeleine, an accomplice in Elster's murder. Enraged and betrayed, Scotty forcibly takes her to the mission of San Juan Bautista to reenact the crime and conquer his vertigo. The climb is a cruel inversion of the first. Scotty, determined, ascends the spiral staircase without faltering, dragging a pleading and weeping Judy. The camera, once again subjective, follows his victorious ascent. No more dolly zoom, but a fluid upward movement, making his physical and psychological liberation. At the top, facing the void, Scotty forces Judy to look down and confess again. She admits her love for him, begging forgiveness. Suddenly, a shadow emerges. A nun, climbing the stairs. Judy screams, slips, and falls into the void. Scotty, freed, gazes at the body below with an ambiguous smile on his lips as the mission's bell tolls. This sequence is a destructive catharsis, where Scotty's triumph over his vertigo coincides with Judy's punishment. Hitchcock condenses the themes of guilt and aborted redemption. Judy, the figure of the repentant sinner, seeks absolution, but her fall is inevitable, like an immanent justice. Visually, the tower becomes a place of judgment. The nun's ghostly shadow evokes an avenging spectre, and the bell tolls like a death knell. Narratively, it is a resolution of the vertigo. Vertigo, not just spatial, but existential. Scotty transcends his trauma, but at the cost of a destructive obsession. The scene critiques the possessive male gaze, where the woman is molded and broken to fill the man's void. Ambiguous, it leaves Scotty in suspense, liberated or damned. Let's focus now on the link between the two climbs. The two scenes are linked by a narrative structure of mirror and repetition, typical of Hitchcock style, creating an obsessive spiral like the staircase itself. The first climb is a failure. Scotty, a passive spectator, misses the ideal woman in an orchestrated illusions. The second is a success. He becomes the dominant actor, forcing revelation in raw reality. This inversion reverses the roles. Madeleine, Judy, shifts from haunted victim to haunted culprit, while Scotty evolves from impotent savior to ruthless avenger. Thematically, the link underscores vertigo as a metaphor for obsession. The tower is not merely physical, but a psychic vortex where past and present, love and death blur. Hitchcock replays the scene to emphasize fatality. Judy reascends to atone, but repeats the fall, illustrating the infernal cycle of desire, inspired by the novel D'entre les morts by Boileau-Narcejac. Symbolically, the two climbs form a loop. The first engenders Scotty's obsession, the second resolves it through destruction. It is a meditation on the double, Madeleine Judy, as a single fractured woman, and on the impossibility of innocence, where every ascent inexorably leads to descent. Hitchcock, a practicing Catholic, infuses vertigo with a subtle theological dimension, particularly in these scenes shot at a historic Franciscan mission dedicated to Saint John the Baptist, figure of baptism, purification, and preparation for judgment. An exegesis reveals deep biblical echoes. The tower as a Tower of Babel, pride leading to dispersion, or more precisely, as an inverted Golgotha, where the ascent toward light, the summit, culminates in a deadly fall. In the first climb, Madeleine's possession by Carlotta evokes a demonic haunting, an original sin transmitted, the cursed Valdez lineage. Scotty, like a failing priest, fails to exorcise her. His vertigo is a spiritual paralysis, a refusal of grace in the face of evil. Madeleine's fall foreshadows the Adamic fall, expulsion from the idyllic paradise of platonic love into mourning. The second climbs, the theological climax, operates an inverted redemption. Judy, incarnation of Mary Magdalene, the repentant sinner from the Gospel, whose name evokes the tower as a refuge, ascends toward confession. She washes her sin, the complicity in the murder, in tears and a wowal of love. Scotty, a tormented Christ figure, howls her toward truth, symbolizing mutual crucifixion. But the nun's apparition in black shadow is the exegetical pivot. She embodies divine judgment, a reminder of original sin. Her fall is damnation, not suicide, but a purgative expulsion. The bell tolls the final Amen, and Scotty, contemplating the void, achieves an ambiguous ecstasy liberation from sin, he has conquered vertigo or complacency in divine violence. Overall, the two scenes form an Eucharistic diptych, illusion and revelation. Illusion, because first there is an apparent body, and revelation, because the blood is spilled the second time. Hitchcock critiques a redemption imposed by masculinity. Scotty saves Judy by sacrificing her, perverting baptism into spiritual drowning. The mission, a site of colonial conversion, ironizes America as a cursed, promised land. Such vertigo is not only psychoanalytic, but a parable on refused grace. Ascent toward God leads to fall, unless one accepts humility, which neither Scotty nor Judy attains. This reading, inspired by California's missions as symbols of imposed salvation, enriches the film with cosmic melancholy, where vertigo is the soul's dizziness facing the divine abyss.